For the first time this year, the Mets have lost 3 games in a row. The one silver lining, this nightmare of a road trip ends today.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find any of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On yesterday's show, I talked about having patience with this Mets team, that it was part of your typical ebbs and flows of a season, that at some point, every team is going to have bad stretches, and we're just right in the thick of a bad stretch, and it would all be okay soon, and they would bounce back. And today, as I got up and I saw Mets fans who were so upset about the direction of this team and Juan Soto and all these things, and I'm responding to people from the Locked On Mets insiders who are texting me and comments on YouTube and on social media, and I keep saying, well, this is still a team, remember, as doom and gloom as it feels, that has only lost 2 games in a row all season. They had up to this point in the year, going into play on Tuesday night, they had not lost 3 games in a row all year. But guess what? Now they have. They have now finally lost 3 games in a row for the first time all season. For that to happen on May 21st, it is a testament to how good this team has been. But this offense is brutal. And it's hard for me to continue to sit here and preach patience and tell you not to get pissed off by it when the Mets got shut out. A very winnable game. And it's not even worth it for me to go into all the intricacies and nuances of the game and go inning by inning. It doesn't matter. The Mets did not hit. That's it. That's the story. That's the bottom line. That is everything. They did not score a run. They got shut out. Clay Holmes pitched well. Gave up 2 runs on a pair of solo homers in the 5th inning. Other than that, he was great. 6 strong innings out of Holmes. 2 good innings out of Max Kranick. He had incredible defense by Brett Baty at third base. The bat is still a question mark, but the glove is not. He looks like a future Gold Glover at the position if he could ever hit enough to stick there. I mean, some of the plays he made, the barehanded play was awesome. The running backhanded play, he just looks great over there. Brandon Nimmo, you never see him throwing a runner out, and he did a great job, just picture perfect mechanics on a potential sac fly, gets his whole weight behind it, hits the home plate on a fly and gets the runner out. Some nice little pockets of moments where you get fired up about the defense, but nothing with the bats. And you can look at each and every guy in the lineup, really, outside of Tyrone Taylor and Jeff McNeil. Everybody else collectively has been struggling. The team gets 4 hits all game. They went 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. And, you could say, at times they're passive. And then other times they're too aggressive. They're swinging early in counts with wild relievers. And, the other part of this game is the fact that Walker Buehler gets ejected in the middle of the 3rd inning. And in most series, most times, that's a massive advantage for the opposing team. That all of a sudden it turns into a bullpen game in the middle of a series that should hurt the Red Sox going into the final game of the series. But the thing is, they have Garrett Crochet on the mound, and it doesn't seem like it matters who they put on the mound anyway, because the Mets just can't hit. And they had opportunity after opportunity against this Red Sox bullpen to maybe find a crack and put up some runs. And credit to the Red Sox relievers that did throw the ball well, but also how much of that is them? How much of that is this Mets lineup? When you are seeing a team perform like this, it becomes pretty clear. The Mets are pressing right now. They're pressing. They're struggling. I think the Subway Series, with all the pomp and circumstance, maybe that just weighed on this team. They didn't perform. They were close. Right? The Mets things go a little bit differently on Sunday, they still could have won a series. Not with their bats, but they still could have won. It was very, very close until that blow-up 8th inning. But now it seems like they've been reeling from that game for the past 48 hours. And I don't know if it gets better when you have one of the best pitchers on the mound the final game of this series with Crochet. And the Mets are rolling a guy out there in Tyler McGill that's had 3 bad starts in a row and is looking like a potential option. Paul Blackburn had a rehab start. I didn't even check to see how it went. I actually think it's on Wednesday. He will have a rehab start on Wednesday. You never know. Blackburn could be replacing McGill in the rotation next week if McGill gets knocked around Fenway Park. I don't know. It is a really bad time for the New York Mets. And what's waiting for them? The Dodgers. But at least that series we played at home. And just to make you feel a little bit better, the Dodgers, this impenetrable team, best team in baseball, yada, yada, yada. They've lost 4 games in a row. I'm looking right now. They're winning 1-0 in the middle of the 8th inning. So looks like they have to get 3 more outs against the Diamondbacks before they'll break that 4-game losing streak. But it can happen to anyone. And while it is frustrating, I'm not telling you not to be frustrated. Trust me. I didn't enjoy watching the game tonight at all. What I will say is I'm not going to let a bad couple weeks, change my opinion about what this Mets team is and what they will be throughout this season. But it's a very frustrating stretch. And no one's more frustrated than the guys in that clubhouse. They want to get it right. They want to break through, and maybe they do. Maybe they shock everybody, and they actually do hit Crochet. Maybe Tyler McGill. Man, I really butchered Tyler's name there, huh? It's like I combined it all into one word. It was weird. Maybe Tyler McGill actually has a good start, and the Mets win the final game of the road trip. They go home on a good note. They get an off day. They get to face the Dodgers. They have an impressive series victory over the weekend. Then they play some bad teams at home, and maybe all of a sudden the Mets are rolling again, and it's all good times, and it's sunshine and rainbows, and Mets fans are happy, and all of this is a thing of the past. But right now, in this moment, really frustrating to talk about this team. So what I'm going to do is not. I am going to talk about this team. I'm not going to talk about how they're currently playing. It's been bad. I can't tell you what's going to fix it. I think it's, just the team has to take a collective deep breath, and hopefully they just get back to the process, get back to the grindstone, and just have a better approach in the box. It just seems like everybody's pressing, but that can change quickly. One big inning, if Francisco Lindor leads off the game and rips a double down the line, and Juan Soto gets a base hit, and then Pete Alonso with a 2-run homer, all of a sudden it all can go away in an instant. But for now, it's just one of those things. So what we're going to do is talk about a topic that I've been sort of pitching out there on the show for a couple weeks now, ever since the drama with Rafael Devers and the Red Sox. Is there a world where this guy actually gets traded this year, and are the Mets a realistic landing spot? We're going to go through that in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center where you can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start to build wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even to plan long-term goals. Managing money through a partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. If you're liking the content, throw a like on the video and leave a comment if you believe that Rafael Devers will get traded this year, or you think he's going to stay put. Right now, this is a story that has lost a little bit of steam, but it was a hot topic a couple weeks ago when Tristan Casas went down and they asked Rafael Devers if he would pick up first base And he said no. And that's the second time this year, dating back to spring training, that he has been hesitant to make a position change. And that is where all of the drama has stemmed from between Rafael Devers, the superstar in the face of the Red Sox, and this ball club, where it all began. It started in spring training when they signed Alex Bregman. Initially, the reports were, oh, Bregman's coming to play second base because they already have a superstar third baseman in Devers. And then as spring training started, sort of got out there, oh, well, Red Sox wouldn't mind if Devers would just DH. And Alex Bregman, the guy that won a Gold Glove in the American League last year for his play at third base, would take over that position. Devers has never been a good defender. And so the idea of upgrading defensively while adding another key cog in the middle of their lineup, it was very attractive. That's why they spent all the money on Bregman. But Devers felt like he was sort of left in the dark. He said he was promised to play third base, but Alex Cora said, well, your promise behind Bloom is not here anymore. And so that's where all of this began in spring training. Devers accepts the role of DH, gets off to a brutal start, but then starts to pick it up and has been raking for a while now. Tristan Casas, their first baseman, goes down. They ask him if he wants to move over. He says no. And here we are. There's all this speculation that maybe he'd move. And when there was talk about Devers getting traded, there was two teams that I would most frequently see put out there as ideal landing spots for Devers: the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies. That's because both of these teams have young third basemen, or I guess Alec Bohm is more trending towards veteran at this point. He's getting closer to his free agency, but still, they have unproven or not third baseman that they aren't married to, right? So there's potential hole there. They're win now teams, and they're teams that could take on a contract. And so that's why those two destinations made some sense to potentially swing for the fences on a Devers trade. Now, if you're not familiar with his game, Rafael Devers is one of the best left-handed hitters in baseball. A guy that since 2021 has not posted an OPS below 850 in any season. This year, you look at what he's done over the past 30 days, sitting 343, 459 on base, 657 slug, an OPS over 1,100, 8 home runs, and 27 RBIs in a 27-game span. He's 28 years old. Career 280 hitter with a slugging percentage over 500. He absolutely rakes. And the idea of Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Rafael Devers, and Pete Alonso as your 1 through 4, not in that order, it'd probably be Lindor, Soto, Devers, Alonso, or Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Devers. However you line those guys up, that's a team that can make noise. So it is an interesting thought. And if you are viewing third base from a Mets perspective and how they plan to run out the rest of their season, and Mark Vientos is the most likely answer, while Devers isn't great defensively, neither is Vientos. So there could be a Vientos plus prospects for Rafael Devers trade, where you send out a young, promising bat that wouldn't mind moving over and playing first base for the Red Sox, and you get Devers back. And of course, you have to send prospects on top of it to get a player of Devers' caliber. And the Mets could absolutely make a trade that would help them win now in a major way. But there's two big problems with the idea of the Mets trading for Rafael Devers. The first one, I still don't even think that the Red Sox are going to move him. They're trying to contend. It's a wide open American League, and it's very hard to move a bat of that magnitude in the middle of a season and expect to actually still win. And even if you got a Vientos back in return, if you think that Mark Vientos is 70 cents on the dollar for Rafael Devers, it's still tough to make up that difference. It really is. So there's that part of it where, as much as there has been a lot of back and forth and strife between these two sides, I still don't know if they'd actually pull the trigger on trading him. The other side of it, I don't know if the Mets would want him long term. They've talked about how you have to be careful with the big contracts you give out. If you made this trade, you'd be locking yourself into a team with Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Juan Soto, and Rafael Devers. That's your core. Now, it's not a bad core. It's a really good core. But are the Mets looking to spend to that degree for a non-fielder? I think the intent would be hey, DH for us for the rest of the year because he doesn't want to do a midseason position change. And the hope would be that he move over to first base next year and you just wouldn't bring back Pete Alonso. Or you could play him at third and have a subpar defensive third baseman. But I don't think that David Stearns would necessarily want that. It's one thing to have Mark Vientos as the best option in your organization, giving you a place to put his bat, and you're paying him the minimum. It's a whole other thing to pay a guy nearly $29 million to play third base. He's making $27 million this year, next year, and then $20.5 million for pretty much the rest of his career. It's year 2 of a 10-year contract. So even after this year, there's still 8 years left on that deal. It's a really interesting possibility because there's not going to be a better bat available at the deadline. I mean, there's just not. But again, are they actually going to put him on the table? And would the Mets really be interested? I honestly don't know with this one. It's one that I went back and forth with in my mind for a while. Like, would I do it? Would I go out on that limb? Because again, you look at the top of this lineup, and if you went into the playoffs and you had Lindor, Soto, Devers, Alonso, that's nasty. Okay, that's a lineup that can win you a World Series. Absolutely. He is, again, one of the best left-handed hitters in baseball. I would prefer Rafael Devers' bat, I think, long-term. Let me think about this. I'm about to say something crazy. Would I prefer Devers over Vladdy? Because there was all the Vladdy talk before he signed the deal. Mets fans wanted him. I feel like Devers is more consistent. Vladdy's more up and down. This year, I'm now looking to see. I mean, he's having a better season than Vladdy right now, I think. Vladdy's got 5 home runs in 46 games. But regardless of that, it would be a very interesting team if the Mets could pull that trade off, but I honestly think it's pie in the sky. I don't imagine them swinging for the fences to that level. I just don't know if it actually fits. And again, the bigger part of it is I just don't think he's going to be moved. But what I want to do to close out the show, since we don't know who is available at the deadline yet, what I want to do as a fun thought exercise is tell you who I think should not be moved under any circumstances when it comes to Mets prospects. So we're going to talk about untouchables in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. If you are an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. It's our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways. You get the lineup graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. So who is untouchable at the trade deadline for the Mets? Which prospects would I not want the Mets to move under any circumstance? Now, you can throw out there Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, all the best prospects in this system. And so I wouldn't trade any of them. But if the Mets are in a position to swing for the fences and get a Devers, or maybe the Diamondbacks fall to the race and Zach Gallen ends up available since he's going to be a free agent after the season, or maybe Luis Robert starts to figure out how to hit over the next couple months and actually does look like an attractive trade piece by the time the deadline rolls around. Whoever it is, if they're going to make a big blockbuster trade, you have to give to get. And you can't just say the whole system is off the table. So who really is untouchable in this system? I'll start with the pitching prospects. You have 3 guys now that are your clear top-tier pitching prospects. With Christian Scott on the back burner recovering from Tommy John surgery, I think he did officially graduate last year from prospect status, but he's another young arm the Mets do have in the holster who could be in the rotation mix next year. But of the guys that are still considered prospects, there's 3 now. Brandon Sproat entered the year as the top pitching prospect in this system. Nolan McLean may have passed him up, but those 2 guys are both in AAA, and they are right atop most prospect rankings. Jonah Tong, with his last couple starts, has really once again continued to see his stock rise. The way I look at this year's deadline and those 3 pitchers, you can trade 1, but you got to keep 2. That's where I would be at. And I wouldn't trade any of them lightly because I still think when you look at the window to contend right now, it's important to have young arms that can come up and not only be part of your rotation, but be difference makers in your rotation. And those are the three guys the Mets have in their system that give you the best bet at that. But if it meant getting the ace this year at the deadline, would I keep all of them off the table? No, I think I would be willing to move one of the three. And obviously, the people in the Mets front office know the two that they'd want to hang on to the most, and they'd probably try to sell the third prospect. But to me, I feel like you could trade one of those guys, not all of them, not even two of them. The other clear untouchable for me in this system right now is Carson Benj. And the reason why I say that is because Carson Benj right now for me is the best bet to be the Mets center fielder of the future. First round pick last year. So far in high A, he's working on a 937 OPS in his first full professional season. The ability to play a strong defense in center field, to be a complete hitter, a guy that's got 5-tool potential. Carson Benge is a guy that I would not trade under any circumstance. Because you don't want to be in another situation where it's a PCA time part two. Now, he's never going to be the defender that Pete Crow Armstrong is, but Carson Benj does have an incredibly high ceiling. Now, when I look at the outlook of the Mets at all these different positions, there's a lot of potential answers. When you look at second base, third base, they have a lot of guys on the roster now between Acuna and Baty, and then Vientos and Mauricio in AAA, Jet Williams. And there's a lot of different options at those positions. Catcher, you're pretty set with Alvarez. First base, we'll see, but it's an easy position to fill. Left and right field, locked into veterans on long-term deals with Nimmo and Soto. Center field is wide open, and there's not a clear-cut answer there yet. You have Drew Gilbert in AAA. You have Jet Williams and Nick Morabito in AA. And then you got Carson Benj in Brooklyn. And also, there's a couple other guys in Brooklyn, too. A.J. Ewing is now making his presence felt. He hit 400 in Port St. Lucie in 18 games, and now in 16 games played in Brooklyn, he's hitting 348. He's already stolen 28 bags on 32 attempts this year. 28 stolen bases in 34 games. It's wild what he's doing. Jacob Reimer, I wouldn't want to see the Mets move. He's hitting 343 in 36 games in Brooklyn. 7 home runs, 16 doubles, 3 triples. He's got a .650 slugging percentage and an OPS of 1.082. Eli Serrano's having a good year in Brooklyn as well. He's got an 809 OPS. So that Cyclones lineup has a lot of good hitters in it. But when I really think about untouchables, Carson Benj to me is the only one that really stands out, and that includes Jet Williams. While I would not want the Mets to trade Jet Williams under most circumstances, if it was for the piece that wins you the World Series and that piece has control, I think I could be talked into it. And that's where there's an interesting wrinkle to this discussion, which has kind of led my thought process on untouchables. And that is the possibility, and I would say it's highly unlikely. But let's just say Paul Skeens gets put out there at the deadline. This is a running idea that I had that we're going to do over at Just Baseball, where Aram Layton, our prospect expert, is going to, I still haven't talked to him about this yet. So let's listen to Locked On Mets. He still is in the dark on this, but he's going to help create trade packages for 6 teams that I view as Skeens landing spots in the wild scenario where the Pirates trade him. And you say they would never do it. I never thought that Luka Doncic would get traded, and that just happened. So in baseball, who knows? Who knows if that type of a crazy popular player can get traded? You don't want to be Nico Harrison. I don't know if Ben Cherington wants to have that stain on him of being the guy that traded Paul Skeens. But I also know if you put it out there right now, if you held a silent auction, you called up the Mets, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Cubs, and you said, we're going to trade Paul Skeens at the deadline this year. He's got 4 years of control, including this season, 4 playoff runs. He's the best pitcher in baseball right now. Give us your best offer. And the point of the article is, which team could put together the package of 6 prospects? So there's some structure that is best that would get a deal done. And so then this whole idea that I've had and working out this article and this concept has led me to think about this from a Mets perspective. Which prospects would I be willing to see the Mets give up? And if that conversation ever happened and that trade was ever a thing, I think the Untouchables is where I started this segment. I would tell the Pirates you can have one of Nolan, McLean, Brandon Sproat, or Jonah Tong, but you're not getting more than one of them. And I would say that under no circumstances will Carson Benj be traded. But if you were to get a player of Paul Skeen's caliber, you'd have to put a Jet Williams on the table. You'd have to put one of your top pitching prospects on the table. A trade of that caliber, you're giving up your best pitching and your best hitting prospect likely, because that's just how good the guy is. But it's almost a combination of which teams would be daring enough to do it and which teams would have the capital to get it done. And I think the Mets farm system is getting to a point where they could put together a package of 6 prospects that's very attractive to a team for a player of that incredible magnitude. And that's like the only guy that would get that level of a return. But it also is a statement to the fact that the Mets do have the capital to get anything they want at the deadline this year. Guys like AJ Ewing and Jacob Reimer, who are tearing the cover off the ball in high A, will hold value. Arms like McLean, Sproat, and Tong will hold real value. And even arms further down the line in this system, like a Jack Wenninger, will hold some value. So the Mets have a lot at their disposal to play with at this year's deadline. And it's going to be fun as we get closer and closer to that time to really start to dive into who's on the table, what would the Mets put out there, all these things. But just as far as the state of this farm system right now, the guys that I think are most important to the Mets long-term, Benj stands out to me among the position players. Jet Williams is great too. Don't get me wrong. I still love Jet, and I would not trade him for anybody but a superstar. So I'll say that as well. He's as close to untouchable as can be for me. But again, this was the Skeens wrinkle that has been going through my mind the last couple of days. And then those pitching prospects, I would be willing to give one for, again, like a superstar, an ace, something that could really move the needle for this team this year. But I definitely would not move more than one of them. And I'd be hesitant to move any of them. So the Mets system's in a good spot. And maybe that gives you a little ring of optimism, another little silver lining. And what has been a brutal time to be a Mets fan the last 4 days, whatever it's been. Brutal. But we'll see. Maybe they got a surprise victory in store, or they're going to beat the Red Sox and avoid getting swept. And they can go into the off day feeling a little bit better. That's going to be all for today's show. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on social media at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that's going to take you around all the MLB action with insights from all of our local experts. You find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel, as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.